And hi, everybody. Doug Miles, and we welcome back to our show. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. Of course, the Belmont Stakes coming up this Saturday up in New York. Our old friend Pete the Prophet joined us today with some thoughts on the big race. Pete, how you been?
I've been well. I've missed you, and you are the original truth, the light, and the way. And it's good to talk to you again. Thanks for missing the Derby and the Preakness and getting me for the last race.
No Triple Crown show. We thought we'd have you on, but.
Yeah, well, I appreciate me having on now with there's very little risk. Who cares who I pick? Who cares who I like? The race doesn't mean too much. I know the Belmont people were very disappointed, of course. They were rooting for Animal Kingdom, and when he didn't come in, they lost about 40 or 50,000 people that would have come out, and they'll have maybe about 50,000, maybe 60. The only reason they'll have a little bit more than that, the uptick, is because of the New York City OTB's closing. So the only place to make wages now is either at Aqueduct, at the Satellite, or they will have to come to Belmont to do it. So, but it's unfortunate. It'll be a nice, quiet day.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. We talked a bit off the air in the last few weeks about OTB, which is kind of hard to figure. How does that close? I know they've NYRA as well has gone through some problems, having to borrow money from the state to stay going, and we've seen that all over, Pete. We saw it a few weeks ago at the Preakness, although they got a good crowd there, but Maryland had to get a loan, or the track had to get a loan to keep that open for this meet. I guess they're in better shape now, but it's kind of a downside of horse racing, isn't it?
Yeah, and you actually also forgot about Monmouth Racetrack, which last year tried they had subsidies from the state and from the casinos, and so they tried a boutique meet where they just raced 3 days a week, big giant fields, because they offered big giant purses. They offered $1,500 no matter where you finish in the race. So usually they pay for the top 4, 5, or 6, but they paid straight on down. It was a great success, but without the supplements this year from the casinos, the governor wanted to close it down. They finally decided to lease it out to somebody. We'll have it for about a 5-year lease, and so the meet has started. It's been very average. It's almost like the old days with smaller fields. They are doing 3-day a week racing. It's a little bit quiet, and it's unfortunate. Really, racing in itself is in a downward spiral. Simulcasting helped it out for a while, but now everyone depends on, and now Aqueduct and Belmont will try to depend on, also getting some gambling revenues from the casinos. But the horse racing model is broken, which is why it's unable to keep itself afloat. They do very bad jobs. They race far too much. There's just too much racing out there. And like you mentioned before, you have problems in Maryland, now problems in Jersey. New York, not problems in the actual racing. But though, if you look at Aqueduct's winter meet, it was absolutely abominable. For the amount of money they gave away, they had 5 and 6 horse fields. Ramon Dominguez won about 40% of the races. On every horse he got on was a big, gigantic favorite. And the favorites at that meet won 45 or 46% of the time, which is absolutely unheard of. 33% is what they average at a regular meet. At some other meets, maybe you get up maybe around 40. 46% made the racing impossible to play, and it suffered a little bit, but they got helped by the fact that they had gigantic crowds because of the OTB closing. So NYRA's a little bit better, but there's problems all the way around. Up in Boston, Suffolk had to make a big deal with their horsemen, or else they would have closed down. Hollywood, runs 3 or 4 days a week. They have 4 horse fields. It's very bad. Only Saratoga and Del Mar and Gulfstream in Tampa Bay. Your neck of the woods, Doug, Tampa Bay had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, they do well since it's right in the heart of the winter season down here. So at least they get some tourists down here for that.
What they also did, though, their thing down there is all about simulcasting, and their signal is very strong. Their product is very strong. They offer a lot of cheaper or middle claiming horses that end up running big fields. That turf course is pristine. It's magical, that turf course. Big fields, big prices. Last year it started to really die off in like March. This they did all the way through, and also not, these other tracks like New Jersey and New York run a lot of bred in the state races. So New Jersey runs New Jersey bred races, New York bred races. Florida doesn't do that, and they get all these different horses that run. It's a great idea, and they're just doing a phenomenal job down there.
Well, let's talk about the race coming up Saturday. Of course, the Belmont, which is the oldest, really, of the 3 Triple Crown races, goes all the way back to the late 1800s. Of course, Pete, I know you haven't been to all of them, but you've been to many of them.
I have. I've been to many of them, and since I grew up right across the street, very difficult not to run right over there and see what's going on. And I'll be doing the same thing for a little bit, on Saturday to see what goes on. Always a good call. It'll be a fairly light crowd, but and basically, Doug, just talking about the race itself. Really, I know anybody, if I owned one of these horses, I wouldn't be saying this, so I really think I'd be thinking it. This is an exceptionally slow group of horses, extremely average. The time in the Preakness was, I think, the slowest in 20-some odd years. The paces in these races have been fine. The race should be run well and quickly, and it has been a joke. You will not see these horses unless there's some sort of magnificent improvement. You will not see these horses later on when the season gets tight.
It really has been, this whole racing season, almost a washout when you think about it. The Derby, of course, Uncle Mo getting the intestinal problem scratch. He was the favorite going in, but after that, you really didn't know anybody. Animal Kingdom, nobody heard of that horse until he won. Now he's the 2-1 morning line favorite as of the post position picks yesterday. But is he really that good?
He's good, but he's good in a very average lot. I mean, the horse that I think is going to take a lot of money is Nero because of his big closes, and he ran well in the Derby. But Nero is eligible for non-winners at one. He's won one race. He's not someone, he looks like he hangs, like he doesn't want to go buy horses. He's got some right to improve. But otherwise, it's a very average group. Animal Kingdom not picking up the horses. Now, Animal Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, if gets a little bit cleaner trip, wins that race. But we've talked about it before. I've mentioned this to you many times. There is a Triple Crown God. He does not allow average horses to win, and even if they win the first 2, he does not care, I'm sorry, or she or he does not care that someone's going for the Triple Crown if you're an average horse. And I will bring up, there's quite a few examples, but Real Quiet was the closest one. Went all the way out there, had the lead by 4, turning for home, and lost the race by a little tiny nose because the God said that's the closest you'll come. Because what happens, all these horses, Big Brown, all these things, they barely win a race again. I don't think Real Quiet won a race again. And even forget the Triple Crown stuff, in the Belmont, these horses that win the Belmont almost never win a race again. I forgot, there's a horse named the Tara who won the Belmont 2 years ago. I don't think has ever won a race since. It's a kind of a freaky race. You think it's a big closing race. It's not because of the steady pace. It's a very, very different day, and none of these horses, the gods stopped it this year in the Preakness because they said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We're not even going to give you 100,000 because none of these horses are worthy." So there it is, Doug. The gods have spoken.
I think you may have something there. It's a good theory. Of course, it is at least some good news that we're getting both the Derby and Preakness winner running in the Belmont. Often when it's not a Triple Crown shot, one or the other does not run in the Belmont because it is a 1.5 miles. But at least we have that matchup, first time since 2005.
Actually shocking that they are coming back. I never thought that Graham Motion, the trainer of Animal Kingdom, would come back in this race. Graham Motion does not like running his horses often, likes big rests. I never thought he'd come back and run. I'd have to say that his outspoken owner probably has something to do with that and wants to run in this race. But otherwise, not really something he would normally do. So that'll add another 10,000 or so to the crowd. But in general, it's very, very. It's going to be a very light race. Not much going on. A lot of long shots win this race. It's been 33 years. I believe that's the 33 years since someone's won the Triple Crown, Doug.
Right.
It's been a long time between drinks. And, there's got to be someone great. Last year, the favorite in the Derby, Escandrea, looked like a super horse. He got hurt before the Derby. This year, Uncle Mo looked like he could have it his own way. He gets hurt, sick before the Derby. So even when the great ones get there, a lot of things have to go right. And this year, it didn't work out. And like I said, the gods have spoken.
Well, our audience is waiting, Pete the Prophet, for your pick of the Belmont. Give us your winner and give us maybe a long shot to look at.
My pick, I'm going to be extremely boring, and I am going to pick Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
I think that he's going to win this extremely boring and slow race. If I were to take someone as a long shot, it would be Master of Hounds. I think O'Brien's got him ready, Gomez on board, and a good rail position, which I like also. Shackelford, I just think has run so hard in these last three races. The Florida Derby, blistering pace, held on just to finish second in a huge race. Derby, huge race in the Derby after setting every fraction. Preakness giant race. It's got to take something out of him eventually down the road. I think he finishes off the board, kind of like what Sham did when he ran against Secretariat.
Right.
Got so tired after a while that he just couldn't do it anymore.
So Animal Kingdom, the winner, according to Pete the Prophet, and look for Master of Hounds, who 10-1 right now on the morning line. Let's talk a little bit, Pete, before we wrap up here. You and I always like to do this about the announcers. We had a chance to talk to Tom Durkin a few years ago on radio down here. Of course, he's still doing the announcing at the New York tracks, but gave up the Triple Crown job on NBC. Larry Colmus took over. I thought he's done a pretty good job. First of all, what are your thoughts on Durkin leaving? Any more to that story? And what do you think of Larry Colmus so far?
I don't think anything extra to the story. Tom Durkin is one of my all-time heroes. One of the guys that when I wanted to be a race caller myself, one of the guys that I wanted to follow in his footsteps and what he did. His calls are great. His vocabulary, his cadence. He's one of the gold standards himself and Trevor Denman. So it was very weird for him not to call the races. It's been very weird for him not to call the Breeders' Cup when it moved, I guess, to NBC or wherever it moved to and from. It
went to ESPN.
I guess it was.
Yeah, ESPN
right.
went to.
So from NBC, right. So when they went to, and they wanted a new voice, and they went to Trevor Denman. Can't go wrong, but the calls. I mean, he's been the voice of the Breeders' Cup since the inception. So it was, and so all the great calls are his calls. The Derby calls are his calls of the last bunch of years. So it's hard for him not to be here. The fact that it would be nerves makes me think there's something else. Maybe there's some other health issues going on with him. I just can't believe that he's not doing it. I thought Larry Colmus did a very, very good job. He's got a good voice. He's been known for a couple of very good calls, but to me, he just doesn't have that complete style or again even the vocabulary. The way these guys come up with some brilliant things, he just doesn't have it. He's very good, but I think he's the show horse behind the big two.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think obviously not at the same level as Durkin. I thought he's done a credible job, but getting back to Durkin, it is kind of strange. You think if you said the pressure was getting to you on doing the Triple Crown on NBC, you'd retire from the job altogether, but he is staying in New York, and hopefully he is okay. I know he did talk about having some heart issues and being on some kind of medication, but we wish him well, but we do miss him on the broadcasts.
I hope he's doing well. I mean, he's also, over the years, I knew him when he first came here, and, he was a rather average build, and he's really gotten big, Doug. I would have to say that there's some issues there with his health. I just think he's one of the best, and his calls here at Belmont, you would never know that there's any issues. He's as smooth and as good as ever. So I'm happy that I get to hear him every day.
Yeah, locally in New York, you get to hear Durkin, but we had him for nearly 30 years, so a lot of great calls on YouTube. You can still listen to him there, right?
You can always hear some great calls, just like you can hear some of your great calls from back in the day when you and I were trying to do it.
None of the horse racing calls have been posted, so those have been erased. Those are in the private archives.
Well, unfortunately, I have them, and once I figure out how to use YouTube, I will put them on there. So
Thank goodness you're computer illiterate.
Well, I do know some people, Doug. I do know people, so I'll take care of that way.
Pete the Private, always good to talk to you. We'll do it again real soon. I know we're going to do a special segment on just horse racing announcers coming up. But again, enjoy the Belmont this Saturday, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, and may the horse be with you.